Hello, Nasdaq followers, and welcome to another episode of Nasdaq Spotlight. I'm your host, Leanne Alfaro. We are coming to you live from Times Square, New York City, where I'm joined by co-founder and CEO of Massachusetts-based Spero Therapeutics. Thank you so much for joining us, Ankit Mahadevia.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I heard that last time you were here, you were ringing the bell.
Yes, we
so
were.
A little bit of a different environment, lowered stage, but we get to learn a little bit more about what it is that your company does. So Spero deals in creating novel treatments for multi-drug resistant bacterial infections. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that means and what are the applications?
Now, Spero was founded 5 years ago, and we founded it because we saw a large unmet need in treating resistant infections. And so people are dying and people are doing things to treat their infections that we never thought we'd have to decades ago. So if you think about it, every week, enough Americans to fill a jumbo jet die of resistant infections, and millions more have to go to the hospital to treat their infections when they didn't. So our mission is to find therapies that patients need right now, and we have a couple of them. The most advanced is an oral agent with the power of an IV that helps patients with kidney and bladder infections have a new option to treat their infections at home. 10 years ago, we used to treat a lot of these, what are called complicated urinary tract infections at home. And because of antimicrobial resistance, we're now forced to treat patients in the hospital. It's bad for the patients and it's bad for the healthcare system, and we have a solution.
Wow. Now that's quite the solution that I want to hear about, how you're addressing it. How is it different from the way that your peers are addressing the same space, and where do you fall within that landscape?
And I think that the key for success among our biotech peers is find the right medicine to treat unmet needs today and deliver the right clinical evidence so that our clinicians and insurance companies have a reason to use it. And we have our lead therapy that does this, as well as another agent in our pipeline, SPR 720. And so what's unique about 994 is the breadth of the opportunity. So there's 2 million people in the US alone that used to be able to treat their infections with an oral, and they can't today. And what's unique about how we're developing 994 is we have a clinical trial underway, which would be the single trial required for FDA approval, that allows us to show that that oral can do the same job as an IV. The way we call it is it's a pill with the power of an IV, which would be a huge impact for patients as well as the healthcare system, which spends thousands per patient that they don't have to when they don't have oral options.
Wow. Wow, that's quite the contrast. Now, the kind of medications that you're describing, the novel treatments that you're describing, they are based on a shift that we've experienced in how to address patient issues. Looking 5 to 7 years down the road, do you expect there to be more shifts that you'll have to address, and how do you kind of plan to address them?
Well, the shift, there's two shifts. One is that when you think about antimicrobial resistance, it is the backbone of everything we do for patient care. Every heart transplant, every knee replacement, every chemotherapy agent that we administer assumes that we can control a patient's infection. We already know globally that that's not necessarily the case. We may be going back to a post-antibiotic era, meaning that things we took for granted don't work anymore. So one of the shifts is that we're able to deliver multiple medicines that can help make sure that that's not the case. Certainly 994 gives us oral options where we've lost them, and we have another agent in the pipeline called SPR 720 that helps over 100,000 patients who have debilitating chronic lung infections. They have nothing to treat them, and we have an option, should we be successful, to be able to address it. The other shifts that we think about is that we have the potential at Spero, should we be successful with our medicines, to be a leader in this field. In infectious disease, it is one of the largest unmet needs in healthcare today. There are millions of patients around the world that need new options, and there really isn't clear leadership on how to develop the right products for the right patients with the right data. And that is our opportunity at Spero to really drive that shift. And with 3 medicines in clinical trials, as well as the best team in the industry, we have a chance to do that.
And now we already have a sense of why the successful development of these drugs is so important, but what does this mean for the everyday patient? And if these treatments didn't exist, what would be the alternative?
So, and we hear stories from our patients all of the time. So we hear from people's grandmothers, their uncles, their aunts. These are all patients that have infections of their urinary tract. This is a very common disease. Over 12 million patients a year have this disease. And in the old days, when you had a urinary tract infection, what was typical is you'd go to your doctor and you'd get a pill. Nowadays, because the microbes have learned how to become resistant to existing therapies, for 2 million of these patients, your only option is IV therapy. And so we hear from these patients, they're staying in the hospital for days longer than they have to. They're going to the hospital and missing work or missing out on their kids' events because they're stuck to an IV pole in the hospital. 994 would give us the chance to provide them with that pill that's been missing over the last few years because of resistance. And that could really change things for patients. We also hear from patients that have NTM infections, debilitating long-term chronic disease, where day by day you lose your ability to do the things that you enjoy. And our patients ask us every day, when is this medicine coming? Because we have an option, should we be successful, to provide them with a treatment that could make their lives better.
And so it certainly sounds like you're working in a very new space and being the leader in creating these kind of solutions.
Absolutely.
And treatments. So looking out into the future, what most excites you about the changes that are to come, the treatments that are to come?
Well, we're very excited about the medicines that we have for patients. Each one, 994 as an example, could change the way that we treat infections. Try to bring patient care back outside of the hospital where it belongs, if at all possible. And with the pipeline of medicines we have, we can provide new options where they don't exist. And so we're excited about the opportunity to work with our clinician partners, with the healthcare systems that need better options than keeping patients in the hospital, and then continuing to innovate. We've had a track record over time. Our team has multiple approved medicines, has been responsible for 7 FDA approvals, has thousands of patents to their name, and so we're going to continue to innovate and bring new medicines to patients.
And very much needed innovation and treatments, of course.
It is the largest and most underserved therapeutic area in medicine today. If we don't have it, nothing that we do in healthcare works. And the fact that we have multiple clinical stage medicines that could provide relief is really exciting for us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling us a little bit more about Spero Therapeutics, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you, Leanne. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you, followers, for watching another episode of Nasdaq Spotlight. Please stay tuned for more coverage coming to you live right here from the Nasdaq Market Site.